name was out there in sort of a legendary status, and then I started going to the timber meetings and just kind of getting to know you a little bit. Just thought it'd be good to just talk about sort of the history of mountain biking here. So it's Saturday morning. You can go ride anywhere you want to in Tallahassee. What's your favorite place to go ride?
My favorite place to go ride is right here from my house.
Yeah.
Honestly, probably my go-to trail would probably be Coles.
Okay.
To Fern, to Tom Brown. And it's called Coles, but it's actually what was the OG or the old school people would call it is the Pine Beetle. That's what's kind of cool about that trail. To my understanding, that trail was built by this guy called John Harvey. He's really one of the old school trail pioneers in this town. I met him one time. He ended up getting in big trouble, as a matter of fact, for having he cut a trail that started, there's the Winn-Dixie that's on Magnolia.
Okay.
There was a trail that they called, it was like the Winn-Dixie trail. He cut that, and then, as you know, the Fern Trail connects right under the Blairstone overpass right there.
Okay, yep.
So that went all through there, and it was really probably one of the most technical trails in town. I would say probably the most difficult trail like you would ride in Tallahassee. It's gone now.
It was Rogue Trail, not
It was Rogue
sanctioned?
Trail, yeah.
Okay.
And he had built it, and he actually got in trouble for that. And
I've heard people talk about the Winn-Dixie Trail. I mean, was that the original Tallahassee sort of mountain biking trail, or were there other mountain bike specific trails before that?
Oh, no, yeah, there was trails way before that.
Okay.
There's been trails out in the forest way before that.
Okay.
Yeah. All the trails, like Munson, Paper Cup.
Okay.
There was no signs or anything.
Clay?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. The clay didn't come till like 2008.
Okay.
Yeah.
So just sandy.
It was just a sandy entrance.
It
kind of looked like a double track entrance.
Okay. So were they riding motorcycles on that, or was that just more?
I don't know if they were riding motorcycles. I do know that almost all of the trails out in the forest, like what they call the forest loop, and the gold mine, all those trails that have been reopened and people are using now again. Forest loop's always been used, but those are people all motorcycles.
Okay.
They're the ones that cut that deal. Motorcycles were like the original trail pioneers in this town.
Right.
Like motocross or off-road.
When did mountain biking get introduced into Tom Brown, and was it just did the mountain bikes just take over hiking and walking trails, or was it purpose-built mountain biking trails?
So when I came back, that I finally moved here permanently, that was in 2005.
Okay.
And I had never ridden Tom Brown until then. I hadn't ridden any of the trails at Tom Brown until then. And I met this dude called Chris Neal. Kind of like showed me around.
Okay.
He took me to my first shop ride, which was at Higher Ground. Finally, we make it to Tom Brown, and we basically rode Magnolia Trail at that time. It was a lot different than it is now.
Was it more just kind of like a hiking trail?
It was more of a hiking trail,
y'all were riding on?
And it was just more raw and gnarly.
Right.
It was not maintained. People probably had been riding that for 10 years before that, but it was a handful.
Right.
It wasn't a lot of people riding out there like there is that. So one of the first people that I met that was really involved with trails, and he was kind of always doing it on his own, and in my opinion, he's probably the person that deserves the most credit in Tallahassee as far as trails goes is John Kalin.
Okay.
Hands down. I mean, people can say what they want. The person that puts their money where their mouth is, John Kalin. Hands down. He's photographed more inches of trail in this town than anyone has ever done. He's videoed more trails than anybody in this town. He's worked on trails by himself, on his own, quietly, doesn't tell anybody anything since I've met him in 2006.
Okay.
He always said that he's a runner that happens to ride a bike.
Okay.
But he was always like, you know, he'd always come on the shop rides with us and stuff, and he was always at every trail work day. And that was one of the things, like, I guess how I got my legendary status. It's not because I'm some legendary person that's amazing at cycling or badass at anything. I was always the guy that was there doing the work. So people would come by and ride by, and I'd be the guy working on the trail. So then finally, I was able to figure out who was really in charge of the trails, and that happened to be Chuck Goodhart.
Okay.
Chuck Goodhart was the city park manager before Eric Mason. Eric Mason is the current manager of the trails, but Chuck Goodhart was the original guy. And Chuck, man, he was awesome because he really educated himself when it came to trails. And I got to know him, you know, and I mean, I hung out with Chuck a lot. He knew that I was the guy to call when he needed, hey, we need to do this work, or we've got trail work to do, or whatever. He would call me, and I would call some other people, and like, you know, I guess when it comes to trails in this town, if you were to ask me to name off people that come to mind, I would just, you know, Chuck Goodhart, John Kalin, John Harvey, who cut Fern Trail. Like I said, I didn't know him, but I have seen that he did that, and definitely that he was one of the first guys. Ken Foster, Charlie Coltis. Did I mention Charlie Coltis?
No, you didn't, but I ride now with Charlie.
That dude, every trail work day we've ever had, he's there. You know what I'm saying? And those are the people that I respect and admire when it comes to mountain biking.
So,
What, my chopped liver over here?
What that?
Is that one of my chopped liver over here?
Oh, I'm sorry. And Judy, my wife. Yes, forgot.
The funny thing, so Charlie.
And there's other people, I can't think of them now, but they come to mind. You know, Cliff Leonard has been a lot influential. Rick Smith has been very influential. He cut a lot of the trails out at Maclay and at Lake Overstreet. Just with Cliff Leonard too.
Yeah, I never knew about. I don't know if it was Judy or somebody was telling me about the whole how Silk came about, and
the name Silk, from what I understand, is it came from Rick Smith, because they called him Rick Silk because he rode so silky smooth.
And he and Cliff, or was
him and
Cliff? They went and worked with
yeah, they worked with the state park, and they actually they flagged it out and everything, and you know they really did all that. You know, for a long time there was a sign out there that said this trail built by Tallahassee Mountain Biking Association. And I saw that, I was like, no, we didn't.
Big things that with the club we were able to do this in Tallahassee.
Hey, getting those dirt jumps was huge.
That was huge. Probably the first big thing that the club was involved in when the city brought Trail Dynamics to town. They paid for it. Our job was to when they came and cut the trail, for us to help clear the corridor and do a lot of the finishing work. And that meant packing the dirt down and stuff like that. Because at that time there was only a crew of 3 people in Trail Dynamics. It was Ed Sutton, Woody Keene, and this woman called Valerie. And they followed the same the first trail I did was Magnolia. They first came here and reworked Magnolia. So they rerouted the parts of Magnolia that were bad. People pitched the fit. You're getting rid of them. You're making the trails easy. You're doing this. And
Just like that. That's how they were complaining.
People, yeah, they sound just like Nico. That's what I hear when I hear them complaining like that. And yes, they did get rid of some of the gnarly stuff, but I hate to use this word, but it's true. That stuff is unsustainable. So the trail's not going to last as long. So all they did was reroute those areas.
Right.
So that it would let that heal, and you just reroute it somewhere else.
And then you just rip apart.
Wait a second. Man, did you poop?
He did squat for a second.
Oh, get out of here.
Sorry about your luck, buddy.
Come on, let's go change your diaper.
You come back. Yeah. You can't be hanging out here and poop in your diaper.
Come on, let's go change your diaper.
That's a foul for the deck.
Let's go change your diaper. Come on.
That was a while back. And then, Eric Mason came into the fold. And he really, I guess Chuck talked to him when he hired him, and he was like, man, these are the people that when you ask them for help, they're going to show up. And he obviously gave him my name.
Well, that's
then
pretty...
Jimmy became president of TMBA after me, because I was like, through Mickey.
Okay.
Mickey introduced me to him. So that's how I got to know Jimmy. And Jimmy's a real friendly guy, so we exchange numbers, and we would continuously talk, whatever. But he didn't want to be involved in the club. He loves mountain biking, loves trails. He puts his money where his mouth is. I mean, he's a go-getter. What I wanted to do as president, my goal was to connect all the trails in town off-road,
right,
or via a paved path.
Right.
The funny thing is, I didn't really have to do anything other than let what the city was already going to do naturally unfold. Because of the chain of Cascades part. If you look at Blueprint 2000, that's all written there. And
just from
we have a lot of green space, and we've fought for that green space in this town against developers and people. We've gone, I can't tell you how many times we've gone to City Hall to meet with all the commissioners during when they have their discussions.
Yeah, we've talked about some about Magnolia and some of the history of that.
Mm-hmm.
What's the story with Redbug?
So, as far as I know, what I know about Redbug is pretty recent history of it, and
so it's a pretty new trail then?
No.
Okay.
It's not new. I rode it 15 years. I don't know who cut it. The funny thing is, one of the things I remember distinctly years ago is a little sign on one of the bridges at Redbug that said Whittington Way. And there was a guy in town called Ken Whittington. He's still in town.
Okay.
And, he's a longtime cyclist in town and stuff. And I don't know if he cut part of that trail or what, or how it got there. Because I like I said, I don't know much about the history of Redbug, the old history of it. I just know that Redbug, like I said, I was, working closely with Chuck, and he was like, I gotta do something about Redbug. It's eroding away. And it is. Redbug is horribly eroding. It still is now. And we were just like, well, call Trail Dynamics. So we contacted Trail Dynamics, and they were like, yeah, we can come and remediate. And if I'm not mistaken, I think Cliff Leonard worked with Valerie on all the reroutes that they were going to do on a Redbug. And Trail Dynamics came in, and they just basically rerouted all the parts that were horribly eroded and redid it. And then they've come back last year, as a matter of fact, and redid it again. And that's probably going to have to continue. to be honest with you, because it's an erosion trail.
Yeah.
That trail's just going to erode. Eventually, that trail's going to just disappear. You know, I hate to say it, but...
And is that because...
And when I say in a long time from now, you know,
Right.
like, I don't find that to be a sustainable trail.
And do you think that that's because of the way that it's routed, or is it because of the actual
nature
dirt?
of the ground, the
Okay,
nature
yeah.
of the way the water runs there.
Okay.
Yeah, that's all very important when it comes to building a trail. That the longevity of it is very dependent on where it is and
Okay.
how the water is managed.
Mm-hmm.
Water is like
Talked about some of the club history, some of the trail history. When did the dirt jumps of gun range come onto the scene? What's kind of the story with that?
So the history of the dirt jumps is, it's kind of a bittersweet type thing. Craig Brixer was this guy that I met here in town, and he took me to these dirt jumps that he built illegally by these railroad tracks. So Chuck came to me and was like, these kids want to build these dirt jumps. What do you think? And I'm like, yeah. Like, we should totally build dirt jumps. This is like a new progressive thing. You want to talk about being progressive and everything? You will have a lot of people going out there. Well, it turns out you will have a lot of people going out there. You will have no one to go out there and maintain. And I put him in contact with Chuck, and I said, look, man, I think this is the guy you would want building your dirt jumps. That's the guy who built it. He's like, oh, he built those dirt jumps over there by the railroad tracks? I'm like, yes. And he's like, okay. So they kind of got together, and Chuck said, okay, the gun range is where we're going to build these dirt jumps.
Was there anything there previously? I mean, was it...
Yes, there was a gun range.
Okay.
There was a trail that went through there, but it was just like a loop, like a Magnolia, like an extension of Magnolia.
So it was an actual gun range.
Yes, actually, there was a that's a whole long other part of the story. That big giant wall that we ride on now to go into there, where you hit that first big jump.
Yeah.
That whole big wall, that's the backsplash of the gun range. And Chuck, I don't know how he found this guy, but he found this guy named Ryan Baker. And Ryan Baker is a machine operator, and he builds a lot of motocross trails and like monster truck stuff.
Right.
You know, and like he can drive big machinery, like giant excavators.
Okay.
Young guy, you know. And Chuck hired him only for this project. And he said, I need you to move the dirt and do what this kid says. Like, put the dirt where he says to put the dirt.
Right.
It's kind of like what happened. So Ryan went in there with an excavator. They started excavating, and then I don't know how the whole idea came up, but it was like, this used to be a gun range. There's probably like lead all over this with lead. So they had an independent company do this thing. Sure enough, it came back. Yeah, so we had to remediate the lead. Dude, that was like $30,000.
Wow.
That they wasted remediating the lead, like digging the lead out, replacing it with other dirt. That sucked. That part
So
sucked.
gun ranges had a dirt transplant.
Pretty much, yes. And Craig kind of directed Ryan Baker, and they built a very easy beginner line, super easy. It was basically just like kind of rollers.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing big, no lips. Then they built another one that was actually a dirt jump line, but it was all tabletops.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just dirt jumps, but tabletops. Pretty big. 10 footers, big jumps. And then the next one had big jumps, and they were gaps. And then after that, there was like a really big dirt jump line with massive jumps, and they were gaps, so you had to be like highly advanced rider to hit all those.
We had these great dirt jumps.
We had
And just
the best dirt jumps in Florida.
wow.
Period. I mean, I don't even have to doubt it. Even till today, those dirt jumps are better than anything that's at Santos. For
Really?
sure. Hands down. No doubt about it. But we didn't maintain them. But everything got so overgrown that the city said, this is not maintained. This is not safe, which it wasn't. And there's no control over the area. So like people were just riding in there on a regular bike ride and coming across these jumps and eroded stuff, and you couldn't really see because everything was so overgrown. And they bulldozed it. They got the city's bulldozer, one of their big excavators, and flattened it all.
What was the response within the?
No one
pitched a fit.
No
No
one
one
pitched
fought
a fit.
for it.
No,
Nobody.
no one fought for it. It was sad. There's a lot of money, time, and effort was put into that. What I would like to see is all that progression that we have in isolated areas. I would like to just see it on the trail. Instead of building dirt jumps, we should build jumps on the trail.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah.
Not go to a designated space to ride a couple of jumps or ride some skinnies, or like forget about that whole isolation of this. Like,
this is only where you go to do this.
this is where you go to do this. This is separate from this, and I disagree with that. I think that's all part of mountain biking.
Yeah.
Like, we should no longer consider a jump on a trail as like, oh, that's for dirt jumping. No, that's the future of trails. That's the way it's going. That's the way I feel it should go. Like when you go and you hit a dirt jump.
It's important for us to do next as a mountain biking community.
As a mountain biking community, that's a good question. I say just work together with your land managers. Keep fostering that relationship and growing that relationship and getting them involved with the mountain bike club and getting the club involved with them, because the land managers are the people that make the decisions ultimately.
Have to do to increase that membership. I mean, do we need
So,
to reach them differently? Do we need to be more vocal? Like,
I think outreach is definitely one of those things. Creating places and environments where everyone feels welcome to participate. You know, having like events, like for example, to give you an example of something specific, like have an event at the pump track where even if you don't have a bike, you can come and there'll be a bike available for you to ride this pump track.
Okay.
And maybe somebody to show you how to ride the pump track. You know, and if you don't have a helmet, maybe, hey, we'll give you this helmet if you know, commit to riding and become a member of this club, or show up to this many work days on the trail and we'll pay for your membership to the club. Things like that.
Well, thanks, man, for taking the time to just kind of go through some of this history and just kind of get your take on.
I appreciate you even coming to talk to me about it. Like, I really do. I don't consider myself like the most knowledgeable person of the history of this town, but it was fun talking to you about it, about what I know.
Yeah, cheers, man.
Cheers, man.